to each and every family in this country.
Order. Honourable member's time has expired, and the question is that the bills be agreed to, and I call the member for Dawson.
Well, thank you, Mr Deputy Speaker. And after the hot air that we've heard on this, it's time for some clarity, time for some common sense, and time for some understanding exactly about what this debate is. Because there's been a lot of confusion, I suppose, that was born in the creation of the carbon tax, because the Labor Party sort of played the hokey-pokey game on this. I mean, before the 2010 election, the carbon tax was out. Then after the 2010 election, the carbon tax was in. And then before the September 7 election, the carbon tax was out again. But now they're here telling us it's in. So you can understand why there's been a lot of confusion about this debate. But in essence, what we are debating is a very simple premise, and that is this carbon tax is going to help save the planet by raising costs. Now, it won't surprise you to know that I dispute that premise on many number of levels, but I think it's vitally important that we realise from the very start that it's confusing two very different debates here. First involves science, and the second involves economics. Now, first, there's the debate on science, which I believe has created an extraordinarily unscientific reaction around the globe, because science is always about ongoing inquiry and understanding. Now, whereas the global warming debate has been characterised as one between good and evil, and we've heard that here today from the members opposite, and that fits in perfectly with their hokey-pokey kindergarten approach to politics. But for the grown-ups in the room, it's certainly not objective, and from where I stand, the greatest crime in this debate has been the demonisation of anyone who has the temerity to question any aspect of the theory of man-made climate change. Now, just as those who subscribe to the anthropogenic climate change theories that they can't be 100% sure of their belief, I can also not state categorically that I know there's no link between emissions and the climate. But I do have doubts. I do have doubts. And those doubts stem from the well-publicised antics of some of the climate scientists out there that were exposed in ClimateGate, where they expressed private concerns over the negligible increase in global temperatures. In fact, there has been no increase statistically in global temperatures over the last 15 to 16 years, but then those climate scientists set about altering their statistics to try and prove the opposite. Now, the non-governmental International Panel on Climate Change, which is not influenced by the need to secure government funds, has actually published a report called Climate Change Reconsidered. Now, that report showed that the science is nowhere near to being settled. They were reputable scientists, reputable well, just like the IPCC report is not peer-reviewed. No, it's not, mate. It's not, mate. The reports that come out aren't peer-reviewed. This is a document by real climate scientists who say that there is doubt about the science and the so-called science that we hear that's out there. But I want to get on to the economics, because this is an area where the facts really are indisputable, and we don't need peer reviews to know that. There are, and the member before raised Professor Garnaut. Well, Professor Garnaut, he had an interesting quote from his report when he dreamed this whole mess up for the Labor Party, and what he said was regional communities and industries are likely to be more vulnerable to these impacts of this than urban centres due to their reliance on agriculture and other natural resource-based industries. And he's right, because in my electorate there's mining, agricultural and tourism, and this tax is suffocating all three of those industries. In mining, the picture is very bleak. We've had 9,000 jobs cut across Queensland and New South Wales, many of which are in the Bowen Basin over the last 18 months. There's an undeniable link between the carbon tax and those job losses. Rio Tinto called it an unfair tax on Australian exporters. Now, farmers in my electorate, it's also equally devastating for them. Cane growers have come out against it, saying it adds significantly to the cost of the bottom line of cane farming businesses. The Queensland horticultural-based body, Grocom, also predicted that a carbon emissions trading scheme, which these guys want this carbon tax to evolve into, could raise farm costs by about 1.15% by 2020. Any addition to the bottom line of farms is not a good thing, and it risks farmers going to the wall. Tourism is also equally at risk. A new study by AEC Research, commissioned by the Tourism Accommodation Australia, estimates the carbon tax will add $115 million in costs to hotels and motels. So 3 industries in my electorate that are going to be hit, and hit hard. Labor's carbon tax is just wrong. You know, it's probably wrong on the science, it's definitely wrong on the economics. I urge every member of the House to distinguish between the two. Enough of the hot air. Let's get rid of this dreadful carbon tax.